Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the April 7th, 2018 edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mikey B, WWE. And here we are on the eve of Wrestlemania 34. Just taking a look back at this past week on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live and all the last events on television leading up to the big pay-per-view tomorrow. Generally speaking, every time there is a pay-per-view rolling around, there's always the week prior. There's always everyone taking it a bit safe, not risking any of the main high-profile matches that feature some of the top superstars. So there's lots of promos, lots of in-depth looks, lots of big tag team matches, things like this. And especially this is even more so the case prior to the biggest event of the year, WrestleMania. So there was certainly some fine tuning in the creative end of things as they were making some final decisions, announcements, and letting the audience know some additional angles that might be worked into tomorrow's big event. Beginning with Monday Night Raw this past Monday on April 2nd. The program opened with Jonathan Coachman, the recently returned commentator, hosting a Q&A for the highly anticipated mixed tag team match for WrestleMania, featuring Ronda Rousey's WWE debut as she teams up with Raw General Manager Kurt Angle to take on Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. So this Q&A was very hostile. It didn't stay very civilized for too long, as eventually it all came to blows, which resulted in Stephanie actually tossing Ronda through a table in the middle of the ring. So we at least know that Stephanie is strong enough to toss Ronda Rousey around a little bit. So for all the people out there thinking that Stephanie McMahon has no business being in the WWE ring for a match, certainly at WrestleMania of this caliber, looks like she might be able to hold her own at least for a little while. I mean, I don't expect this match to go especially long, and if it does, it's going to be mainly thanked to, I think, Triple H and Kurt Angle, who certainly can carry their own for quite some time. So that was certainly noteworthy that Steph was able to toss Ronda through a table. So yeah, should set up for an interesting confrontation tomorrow for Ronda's debut. I'm sure everybody's going to be very excited to see what Ronda's going to do and if she's going to get her hands on not just Stephanie but also Triple H. Typically, in mixed tag team matches like this, it's not permitted for a woman and a man to compete in a match. If it's a woman and a man against another woman and a man, then that's how it has to be, woman against woman. And if there's a tag made, then both men would have to switch, and vice versa for the women. Regardless, should be an interesting contest. Certainly should be entertaining, if nothing else. Besides this, for Braun Strowman's tag team opportunity tomorrow against The Bar, Cesaro, and Sheamus, we still have no idea who Braun Strowman's tag team partner is going to be, and I believe this is going to be one of the most exciting moments of WrestleMania, at least the most surprising moments, because this is one of the few things that we are unaware of heading into the big event. So I've managed to avoid reading up any rumors or getting any spoiler alerts for who his partner might be. Could be a brand new superstar, could be a returning superstar. I mean, at the same time, Braun Strowman, many would argue, doesn't even need a tag team partner to compete against a single tag team. But it sounds like it's been declared that he will have his own tag team partner for the big match tomorrow. On Raw, he had a moment where we thought he was introducing his partner, where he meanwhile just tossed on a pair of glasses and a button-up shirt and introduced him as Brains Strowman to go with Braun Strowman, which was obviously him, so this will not be the case tomorrow. So I think we can legitimately expect another superstar to join him for this matchup. So this one will certainly be one of the most surprising moments of the show. I bet Vince has some plans for that. Besides this, for other things unknown heading into Sunday, much to my surprise, we learned that John Cena and Undertaker is still not officially announced. Undertaker was nowhere to be seen this week on both Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live. I was certainly expecting this, just, so it was officially with I thought Taker would show up this week and they would actually make it official and it would be announced on the card and everything. So this is somewhat an unprecedented move, I believe, in the history of the WWE, at least as far as the WrestleMania event goes. I don't recall there ever being an instance with such a high-profile potential matchup being teased for many weeks and heading into the day itself, still no formal announcement of this match. I still fervently believe that this match will take place. I've been saying for weeks on this podcast that it would be the greatest tease, I think, of all to all the wrestling fans around the world if they've been mentioning Undertaker's name. They've had John Cena come to the ring week after week calling the Undertaker out with no response. There's no way I think the company could just do this and just leave everyone high and dry with no appearance from Undertaker whatsoever. Furthermore, John Cena is featured on the big WrestleMania 34 poster. And as far as I can tell, everyone else who's also featured on this poster is competing in matchups at WrestleMania. So there's no reason to believe that John Cena will not face the Undertaker at WrestleMania. But this is certainly an interesting angle that they've posed to all of us. I guess as far as including the Undertaker at WrestleMania each year, since in the last few years he's been less and less active. I guess it's a bit of a stretch to create feuds on the spot with him and some other superstar when he's no longer part of the regular full-time storyline. So this is definitely a new angle that they have not broached before to the audience. So definitely peculiar, but I think this is also speaks to the level of depth that the roster has right now for this year's WrestleMania. Certainly in recent years, this appears to be the most healthy that the roster has been heading into the big event tomorrow. So the fact that the company can lean on already announced, highly anticipated matchups like AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Charlotte Flair, Asuka, Daniel Bryan's return in a tag match with Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, just to name a few. The company already clearly feels that that, along with WrestleMania's brand recognition, already will sell enough pay-per-view, at least for get pay-per-view, high enough pay-per-view revenue. But it's still it's very interesting, and I must say that at first I thought that was a bit of a strange decision by the company, but the more I think about it, the more I like it, because they're building and generating a lot of word of mouth among all the wrestling universe and the WWE universe. So, but rest assured, I'm sure this match will take place. I'm not expecting Undertaker and John Cena to be the best technical match ever, or even on this night, but it surely will. It'll be a very emotional contest. Especially since everyone for a long time expected that last year's WrestleMania was Undertaker's final matchup, and it looks like we might get at least one more here with John Cena, which will tear the house down. Even if it's, again, not going to be match of the year or match of the night, it'll still be very emotional, and will be one of the most probably get one of the greatest responses of the evening. So that's definitely an interesting move by the company, not making this announcement prior to tomorrow. So we're all just still keeping our fingers crossed that this match will happen. But I would be, I think the company would be very much regretting this move if they don't do anything about this. And So I think we can all expect this. It'll be interesting at what point they do bring this. They do actually have this moment, and when this match might take place. I suspect it will be later on in this show. A show which will surely run a good 4.5 to 5 hours for the main program. Plus, there's a kickoff program that will last another few hours, which I will not be watching because that's very much intolerable to suffer through a 7 or 8 hour wrestling event. So 4.5, 5 hours, that's already long enough as far as I'm concerned. Besides this, we also, in the final part on Monday Night Raw, the final segment, Brock Lesnar came down to the ring with Paul Heyman. Something interesting that Paul Heyman did note, all episode, well, before I get into what he said, all episode long, Kurt Angle was warning Paul Heyman and Lesnar not to say anything that would start just a big brawl with Lesnar and Roman, suggesting that they can't risk the health of those two guys for a big main event. So the WWE sent down many of the Raw roster guys after following Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman to the ring, and they were all standing on the ramp to supposedly block Roman Reigns from coming down and starting a brawl with Brock Lesnar. And now, as far as what Paul Heyman said, one comment which I noted, which was very interesting, is that Paul Heyman said, quote, "Brock will say hi to you all from UFC." So, Brock Lesnar's future after WrestleMania is certainly up in the air. At least I don't believe it's publicly known what he will be doing, but surely, he's always had his eye back on the UFC, getting involved there for some more matches. And I think it's grown quite apparent in recent years with the WWE that, in the WWE universe, that Brock Lesnar doesn't care all that much, at least certainly compared to other top superstars in the WWE, about the WWE's programming and about just the sake of the company. He's more interested in certainly just being involved in high-profile matches, earning big paydays at some of the biggest events like Mania, like SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, etc. So, so regardless, once Paul Heyman made his typical speech, just talking about how Brock Lesnar is going to be dominant and yada yada yada. Roman Reigns then appeared on the top of the stage on his way down to the ramp, and he spoke to all the wrestlers on the ramp saying, really, you guys are going to block me? Aren't you guys sick of this part-timer also running things and never being here? And after some consideration by them all, they all parted ways and let Roman have a clear pathway down to the ring to confront Brock and Paul Heyman. So the WWE creative team has really been relying on this angle about Roman Reigns, trying to make him look as much of a good guy babyface as possible, and someone that's just such a reliable figure in the company, and he's there week in and week out, comparing him to Brock Lesnar, who is, of course, the heel bad guy who is never present, misses dates, things like this. They're really trying to play that angle up of, well, I'm here all the time, so why should we reward this other guy who's never here and doesn't care about the company? Meanwhile, for many years, they hardly ever mentioned anything about Brock Lesnar and his relative absence for most of the year. So, this is clearly they're trying to really gain some sympathy from the audience on Roman Reigns' behalf. And once those wrestlers did part the way and Roman Reigns was able to come down to the ring, it didn't take long for the two of those guys to get in a bit of a scuffle ahead of their matchup for tomorrow. So we shall see how that match will go. But especially with Brock Lesnar's uncertain future with the WWE, at least in the short term, especially as UFC is coming calling, and Paul Heyman no less speaks about UFC, I think it's somewhat clear, certainly to me and probably to many fans, how the outcome of this match will be. Now, moving over to SmackDown Live the following night on April the 3rd, not a whole lot of storyline development or progression heading into tomorrow's event. One thing that's worth noting, certainly, that has been talked about and we've seen occur in recent weeks on SmackDown Live, has to do with the Money in the Bank winner for the women's division, Carmella. During a matchup on SmackDown Live on Tuesday, Charlotte Flair was taking on Natalya in a bit of a tune-up match for her big title match against Asuka tomorrow night. And Carmella, once again, as she's done in recent weeks, came down to the ring in what appeared to be an attempt for her to cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase. Charlotte Flair, prior to Carmella being able to hand the briefcase over to the referee securely, she kicked it out of the hands, and it was never cashed in time for this match, or for the match on Tuesday, rather. So they're certainly teasing, the company's certainly teasing that Carmella may have her involvement in the Charlotte Flair-Asuka matchup with this Money in the Bank briefcase. I personally do not want that to happen, at least for the cash-in to occur. I hope if Carmella does appear, which I think is highly probable at this point, I hope it's just in it sort of is in the same manner as it's done in recent weeks on SmackDown Live, where she is intending to cash in but doesn't actually. And the reason being is because I believe Charlotte Flair and Asuka will be one of the best matches on the whole pay-per-view. First time these two are squaring off in the ring in a one-on-one singles match. And of course, this is Asuka's first big title match on the main roster. And it should be great. It should be explosive, and it should be just some of the best wrestling we've seen, I think, maybe ever, or possibly in a long while in the women's division. This will be a very technically sound matchup, and I think it'll be great. So I hope that Carmella's inclusion won't spoil the caliber of the match. And furthermore, I think it's also apparent to many WWE fans that Carmella is nowhere in the same league as Charlotte and Asuka when it comes to actual wrestling in-ring ability. And that's also, I think, a reason why the company's been delaying her cash-in. Didn't seem like, I guess, the right times, or depending on who the champions were at the time. So I don't know. It could easily be. There's nothing saying that once she does cash in that she will win the belt, as we saw with the men's winner Baron Corbin. He cashed in and lost his matchup many months ago. So same thing certainly could happen with Carmella. I don't feel that the company, if they do give her a title run, I think it will be very, very brief. Just again because she doesn't have the not only in-ring ability, ring skills, but I think she doesn't have the same promo abilities as Charlotte Flair, certainly. Asuka, of course, with her English not being so strong, of course, doesn't cut the greatest promos herself, but she's such a great performer in the ring that it doesn't really matter too much about that. But there are other women who definitely cut better promos than Carmella as well, who also contain superior wrestling skills. So I would definitely be keeping my eye on that match because of they've been teasing this for weeks now, and I'm sure Carmella will be at Mania, but I don't know if she will actually get an opportunity to cash in. So that's the big question. And also, an idea no one has been discussing at all is what if she cashes it in on Monday Night Raw for the other women's title match between Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax. That's certainly a possibility as well. So I don't believe that would happen. I think it's more likely it would be during a Charlotte and Asuka matchup. So we will find out. And that pretty much was all the major events going on this past week. Again, it's always a bit of a slow week in the week leading up to a big pay-per-view like this. So doesn't seem like anyone suffered any new injuries, which is certainly a good thing for the company, as it does not jeopardize any of the scheduled matchups so far. So make sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you liked what you heard today. And be sure to tune in tomorrow. I will be giving my Wrestlemania predictions for each match. And this will signify my final pay-per-view predictions for the entire calendar WWE calendar year, as WrestleMania is sort of the beginning and end point. Well, end point more so than of the creative year for the WWE, and the week right after WrestleMania is always a big one. It feels like a brand new chapter starting up. So we shall see if we'll see if how my predictions fare for this final pay-per-view of at least the WWE calendar year. And like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to leave any questions and comments below. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.